Good, good. Sorry, I'm joining early just because we don't use Zoom on our corporate network and we do have some problems with it. So I was just getting in early to make sure I didn't have to switch to an iPad or my phone or something.
Earlier the better, Kim, and good thinking, because yeah, we do have last minute issues, so it's good. Though Kim, you've joined. You've joined as a guest. You're a panelist. I wonder why.
That's what I'm also checking because I got a reminder. So I followed this one. So if you need me to join on the other link, then I'll go back out and come in because I'm getting this, and I guess it's you've registered me for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to come from the other link because we need you to. We would want you to come as a panelist.
Okay, great. I'll see you. I'll come back.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, let's begin because it's past 12 and we have so much to cover today. So good morning, everyone. My name is Namrata. I'm the co-founder of Shift Eco. For those of you who don't know Shift Eco, we're a curated platform for eco-friendly products. We aim to help you make eco-friendly living easy. But having said that, just buying products does not help us be eco-friendly. There are a lot more that we can do to be eco-friendly. And that's the entire intent of this webinar, to start seeing tips, hacks, what other voluntary changes or shifts we can make in our daily life to be more green, to be better to our planet. And we have a fantastic lineup of speakers to tell us about what their recommendations are, what they do in their daily lifestyles to sort of be eco-friendly. So let's start with our introduction of our panelists, and I'll leave it to them to start introducing themselves. Over to you, Celeidh.
Hi there, I'm Celeidh Cook. So I'm co-founder of a children's tableware brand, Rascals, which we launched in the UAE in early 2018. So the reason why we started working in sustainable living was basically during pregnancy. I read a statistic about how only 9% of plastic that's ever been basically manufactured, created, has ever been recycled. And that was quite a surprising stat for us. And then during pregnancy and becoming a mother, I just wanted to make sure that there was more products available for children that are plastic free, and it becomes a norm for children to not use plastic products, basically. Yeah, that's why we moved into sustainable living.
Great. Over to you, Natalie.
Thank you. Yes, I'm the founder of Azraq. Azraq is a not-for-profit, volunteer-led marine conservation organisation registered in the UAE. And we're all about basically conserving and protecting the marine environment. So plastics being one of the things that was mentioned just earlier, and 9% only of it being recycled currently. So that means 91% of everything that is being manufactured does not get recycled. A lot of that ends up in our oceans. And so Azraq in Arabic means blue. And we're basically undertaking activities that are there to conserve and protect the oceans for future generations. So we undertake a range of activities that are set to educate, motivate, and activate the community to take a change than what they're already doing currently, to help conserve and become positive change makers. So we do that through awareness campaigns in schools, on social media, through eco-friendly merchandise that replaces the single-use plastics particularly, and also through activities like beach and ocean cleanups, mangrove tree planting days, and coral reef surveys.
Nice. And how many volunteers do you see in these kind of events broadly?
So we have on our books 70 of our own members, and we also undertake cleanups with corporates. So we can have up to 200, when it's not social distancing and it's not COVID, we can have up to 200 to 300 people on a beach cleaning up, particularly if there's large amounts of debris.
Right, right. Very interesting. Great. Kim, let's get your introduction as well.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So Kim, I'm the co-founder of the Bee's Knees Dubai, which started with a friend and I being asked about some of the things that we were using, where we were getting information from. So we wanted to set up a place in which we could share information, resources, things that we like and use. So really as a place to go to exchange information and things that would help us. And a lot of that has transitioned into sort of a wellness, food, eco space. We have a range of reusable wax wraps. So again, on the plastic piece, a really simple way to replace single-use plastic. And they were just a product that I had seen and used while I was traveling and realized that I couldn't find them myself in Dubai or in the region. So have brought those in. And again, really in the space of there's a lot of information out there, and where do you go and who can you trust or who can you rely on? And so that's what the Bee's Knees is about, just sharing that information, resources and fun things, but also some serious things as well.
Great. That sounds really nice. I think it's a really important point that you make about accessibility of products. So that's really interesting. Great. So thanks so much, ladies, for the great introductions. Before we dive right in, just want to get a sense from you before we start, and it's open to all three of you. What does sustainability mean to you guys? I know you all have given an introduction about what your organizations do, but at a more personal level, what is sustainability to you? Or sustainable living, if I may say so.
If I can jump in, I think for me, it's really just how can we tread a little bit more gently on the earth? So how can we, in whatever ways we can, have a little bit more of compassion and a little bit more sensitivity to the way that we live and work and interact with others. And that can be very small in terms of how you interact with individuals or how, as a consumer, you make an imprint on the earth. So it's that big piece around a bit of compassion, but also how do we tread a little bit more gently than what we do in quite a consumer-led environment.
Right.
Yeah, I would piggyback off that to kind of say that also too, in terms of thinking about the future generations. So sustainable to me means about us not having so much of an impact on the future generations. So it's we have got resources that are finite, not infinite, and we need to be careful about how we use these resources so that this planet that we have, which is such a beautiful planet, is available and accessible to future generations in a healthy environment. And so as we talk about this issue, to me, sustainability is all about how we get to have future generations that can continue on living and breathing in a healthy manner and enjoying this planet.
Okay, fair enough.
Not too dissimilar to both Kim and Natalie, but one of the things I always say to my family is I want us to contribute to the environment and the planet more than we consume and have an impact on. And I think that's that's what sustainability means to us. Not just take and be a consumer, but to give back and make sure that we are treading lightly, as Natalie said as well.
Right. So if that's what sustainability is, I mean, we want to understand in more practical terms, what do each of you do to live sustainably? So you don't have to tell us everything, but just a nutshell for the audience. What do you all do to live sustainably?
So I love to buy pre-loved. That's one of the biggest things that we do as a family. So upcycling, sharing clothes between friends for the children, especially all of the baby gear. It goes around our community. Like I think my cot might be on baby number 8. And so definitely obviously reducing the use of plastic in home is a simple one. But I love the idea of pre-loved and not feeling like you have to keep up with the Joneses by buying new and sparkly all the time. In fact, I get quite a lot of joy out of kind of vocally telling people what I've found that has been pre-loved. So that's one of mine. We'll move on.
Okay. What about the rest of you?
So I'm also a pre-loved fan. I have been even before I got involved in this environmental conservation space. So I didn't know that I was already an environmentalist back in my teens. But I've got that in my gene. It's something that I will always go pre-love. Thrift shopping is something I love doing. I always have. So that's just something I think was mentally put into me as a child. But also one of the things that I sort of the first action that I actually took when I became more aware of this issue was actually to watch my food intake, and the environmental impacts of my food. And that's not something I even thought about. But when I started researching and understanding where the environmental impacts came from, because I've always thought it was going to be through travel, through aeroplanes and cars and things like that. But the agricultural industry, to my shock and horror, was one of the main impacts for the environment. And so I wanted to be very, very eco-friendly in my space there. I've been vegetarian, I've been vegan, I've gone back to vegetarian, I've gone back to being a meat eater, and I've gone through around that way. But I am very much aware now of the impacts of my eating. So I'm making sure that if I do choose to eat any type of meat, it's sustainable. But I have days where I know that it's completely meat-free days, so that we're trying to reduce the emissions and the carbon in the air. So that's one thing I've definitely done.
Very nice. I guess it's
Yeah,
tough
and sorry.
I think it's just tough for non-vegetarians to switch vegetarian. So that's a really good one on you. Nice.
And I was going to say, because that's actually how I came into the space. It was actually a health crisis in our family, that we had doctors and hospital visits and a whole lot that felt completely out of our control. And I realized that the only thing that we really had some control over was the food that we ate, and that needed to be the most nutritious. And of course, as soon as you start down the route of food, then, as you say, Natalie, then having watched some movies, documentaries, read some books, but not really taken it on board, I started to do this really deep dive into food and looking at and understanding the impact that maybe some of the mass production factory farming. So I think for me, the big place has been food, and that I came at from a health perspective to start with. It ends up being about compassion, and it ends up being about environment as well. And so I think with that choice, it's this idea of if you can multitask things or have things that have several uses. So rather than something that you use once or you use only in one way, then do you have, whether it's products, whether it's clothes you wear or furniture or it's food or it's equipment that you bring into your kitchen, if it has something that's built to last that you would use in more than one way, then I feel like that's actually making that contribution and a part of it. And I think COVID actually, for me, one of the big impacts has been we're not in the malls, or we haven't been. Okay, there's been some online shopping, but I think overall as a family, I felt like we've purchased and consumed a lot less in the last 10 months. And I feel that that's actually, we're better as sponsors of the earth if we're not buying stuff we don't need. So I think that piece is around you as a consumer, thinking about what you purchase, if it has multiple uses or if it's made to last. I think for me, that's the piece. And then under the umbrella of food.
Right. Very interesting. I think that these are really interesting points about buying pre-loved, taking care of what you eat, but sustainable living. And we'd conducted a research study a couple of months ago to start understanding why is it that people don't live sustainably, because there's some really easy shifts you can make, right? So a lot of the research indicated towards it being inconvenient or it being tough. And I guess some parts of that do have some merit in the sense you have to really pre-plan. Oh, if I'm going to get a coffee from Starbucks, I need to carry my reusable mug. So it takes an element of pre-planning. So if I had to ask you, which are the easiest shifts you've personally made, other than what you've already mentioned, which can help the audience make these shifts too, what would those be?
Well, I'll go first on that one. And the easiest shift I ever made was to give up the plastic straw. Easy, easy, easy. Most of the time we don't need it to begin with. So we don't need a straw to drink a juice or whatever. And when you have that mindset, it's surprising how often you tune into the straw being delivered to you without you even asking. So then there's the requirement to sort of ask without a straw if you're going out and you're consuming a drink. So the easiest one definitely was to give up the plastic straw for me. Simple. But also to another one, again, I don't think people realize is I am a lover of natural fibers and textiles, so silk and linen and organic cotton and things like that, because of the microplastics that come off those clothing and enter into our oceans. So microplastics being one of the biggest issues for in the oceans themselves. Some of that is because of our clothing. So I became very much aware, not just a thrift shopper, which I used to just do all the time, but also now adding the additional element to look at the actual textile. So, and I don't throw anything away unless I have to. So even though I'm on this trend, if I've already purchased it and I wasn't aware of the impacts, I'm not someone that goes, oh, you know what, I'm not being sustainable now, I'm just going to throw that item away. No, I feel like getting back to what the other panelists have both said, is that it's about reducing consumption. So that's not, throwing that item away is not the solution.
Right. Interesting. What about the rest of you?
I'll go if that's okay. So I think if I'm talking about one of the easiest things we can do as a family and as individuals, it's not easy in the sense it wasn't something we do every day, but now we've started to. It's just switching everything off. So if you're going to bed, your Wi-Fi doesn't need to be on, your phone doesn't need to be on, lights, and it's annoying because obviously every morning you have to get up, go down, switch the router back on, but actually the switching off, it's become such a routine. There's no lights, everything is, all appliances are off. I feel much safer knowing that they're off, but also a super easy way to have less of an impact on the environment. And yeah, that's one of the things that we've been doing here.
Hey, you're saving money too.
Well, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
We also shifted all of our light bulbs to like LED lights to make them more eco-friendly. But actually, I think everywhere now has those kind of lights. We're not. I very rarely see the old type of light bulbs around.
Nice. That's an easy one for everyone to do. Great.
Yeah, I think, you know, my first reaction, probably like everybody else, is when someone says it's too difficult. I freeze up and think, well, it's not. But what it is, it's changing habits. Yeah. And whatever you look at, if you look at whether you go and exercise in the morning or you know, it's all habits, and habits are really hard things to change. And, you know, there's lots of books, there's lots of theories out there around habit change. So it absolutely is. So I always think that where is the simplest, easiest way to start, and have a bit of, give yourself a little bit of time, because for me it was shopping bags. So I'm Australian, and Australia many years ago introduced recycled bags that you would keep bringing back to the supermarket and use. Now you've got to pay for them, or they're not available. But I would forget to have them in my car. I'd jump out, go to pick up groceries and wouldn't have them. So what I've realized over a couple of years is that those bags are always in my car. So I unpack them, they go straight back into the car, so that when I stop for groceries, I've got them with me. I have little ones in my bag, so if I do just jump out with my handbag, I've got one with me. So for me, the simplest one was the shopping bags, and I really notice it if I'm at a supermarket, the number of bags that are getting used by people, and often small items packed, and then there's another bag with another small item in it. So for me, the shopping bags was the really easy place to start, and that was just changing a habit and maybe heading back home again to pick them up before going shopping. And then the other one is also then the produce bags at the fruit and veggie counter, because I just see how many people, and it's so easy just to grab one of those white bags and fill them. So I think and we also have, it seems less strange to bring your own bags to the supermarkets now, even the hypermarkets. The cashiers or the people that are weighing the fruit and vegetables think nothing of you just putting a sticky label on your bananas or a loose pile. Whereas I think a few years ago, you might have felt a little bit weird asking to do that. And there's much that you don't feel like you're being judged for that. So for me, it was the shopping bags, it's the produce bags, and then the other piece that goes, and then I realized I talk a lot about food, is in terms of purchasing food locally grown or regionally grown, so it's not being flown in from really distant locations, and then buying it where you can purchase it loose, so it's not pre-packaged. And there are some supermarkets where you cannot buy fruit and veg that has no plastic packaging on it. So as much as I try to do that, so we changed our shopping, our fruit and veg shopping habits by ordering online with someone that will bring it loosely packed, no paper, no plastic. So I think those kind of been my big places all around food.
You look like a foodie, huh, Kim? So absolutely right. I think a lot of us think eating organic is being eco-friendly, which is not always the case. It's sometimes flown in from all sorts of parts of the world. Sometimes organic produce is also laced in plastic, right? So I think that's a really interesting point. But what's nice is that a lot of supermarkets now are changing that around. A lot of supermarkets also sell reusable produce bags that you can buy. For example, I was at Carrefour this morning and they were selling those quite readily for a shopper who'd forgotten, their reusable bags at home. So it's interesting to see how things are changing. I think I want to now.
One more thing to add, and actually, because I was thinking about life as in general, since before I lived in the UAE, but one of the easiest things to do, and I'm still surprised at how many people have these old kind of office water coolers in their house. And that's a super easy change in getting the filters installed either under your sink. There's many options. You can have them on top of the tap, which filters the water out and makes it drinkable water from the tap. That would go a long way. If more people did that in the UAE, then our plastic consumption from plastic water bottles would definitely reduce.
I think that's a really interesting point, because there are also a lot of organizations now in UAE that are doing water filtration. A lot of them have come up with, there are a lot that are listed even on our platform that are doing a lot of stuff on water filtration. That's actually a very interesting point.
And I think, Kaylee, that's interesting because a lot of people think and believe that bottled water is better. So it's better than tap water, or if it's filtered, people are quite suspicious of it. And look, in some communities that may well be the case, but it's this idea that bottled water is better for you when maybe the water is just water and then you've got the plastic potentially contamination, or what do you do with it when it's finished?
Yeah. And definitely in the UAE, when it's in the sun and they're in the open fans, having the sun beat down on those plastic bottles all day, it can't be a nice mix.
Absolutely. We in fact had a session on it last month, and they were talking about how it's really unhealthy. Having anything in plastic for too long a duration is unhealthy. So that's a very interesting point. We now want to deep dive into each of your individual journeys, and I'd like to start with Celeidh. Celeidh, I know you've introduced Eco Rascals, but we want to understand a bit more how your products are better than others. Tell us a little bit more about your company.
Okay, so our products are made of 100% natural organic bamboo. And so that means it's cut from a bamboo stalk. They're layered together, heat compressed to create a natural bamboo product. So there are many different types of materials that you can have for children's tableware. There are 3 that I would consider as safe, which is stainless steel, natural bamboo, and silicone, food grade silicone. So basically, when I first had my daughter and I was looking to start weaning, I found a bamboo tableware set. And I was really happy that I'd found it. And I was speaking to my business partner. I was like, isn't this cute? She was just a friend at the time. And she actually picked up the box and said, Celeidh, you've just been greenwashed. I said, what do you mean greenwashed? It had a sticker on it and it said 100% organic bamboo. And she was like, it's bamboo fiber. She said, so the bamboo that's in this product is 100% organic. However, the product isn't made up of 100% organic. And then she explained to me the melamine, the plastic that it's combined with to create it as a product and a mold, and she was just like, you'll put food on that plate if it's hot food, and that will leach into your children's supper. And so that was a really big thing for me. And because we were sitting there, I was like, well, how do I get something that is more natural, that isn't just a wooden chopping board to give to our child? And so we sat and we spoke about it for hours, and we looked at stainless steel tableware. She didn't particularly like the taste that it gives off on food. We looked at doing a silicone range, but here in particular, launching in the UAE, although silicone is recyclable, it isn't recyclable in the UAE. So we didn't feel as if it was something we could start as a product as a whole. And then we researched into natural bamboo and decided that that is what we wanted for our children, and thought this would be a good business idea. We actually only bought 2,000 products from 4 designs when we started the business, very much hoping to sell it at the right markets where we were attending to get our local produce. And that was our goal, basically, as mums, bring a product to the market that we knew our friends and family and people here would want to buy. And it grew rapidly. We're now ordering about 200,000 units per year. So basically, as a business, we commit to making sure there's 0 plastic in all of our products. We basically use a low grade ink. That means it doesn't, it takes less. We use an ink that's more eco-friendly on all of our packaging. We use recycled card for our packaging. And we're really conscious of our impact that we're having as a now much bigger brand. And one of our biggest complaints from customers, especially now we're in the UK, is why can't you ship to France and to Germany, and have you not got international shipping? And the rates to do that in the UK are amazing. However, it just does not sit with our ethos. We cannot ship a product to the UK on a boat and then fly it to every country around the world. It just doesn't sit right for us. So I think that's how Eco Rascals is trying to be true to its name, to its nature, and it's we're using only eco-friendly products and trying to keep the business as sustainable as we can.
That sounds really inspiring and sounds like a great business idea, and you all seem to be doing well. And I'm sure there are a lot of parents out there who have the same thought process over how do they prevent their kids from being exposed to toxic products. Yeah. So how would you recommend parents go about ensuring that their babies aren't exposed to toxic products more broadly, not just with tableware, but is there any recommendations that you could give parents?
So I would say you need to read what's the material, and you need to understand or have a list of materials that you don't want your baby to have any access to. So the ones that like spring to mind are things like PVC, BPA. Obviously, it's really difficult with children as well to have something that's not plastic. You can do it, I think, until they're like 3 or 4. You can definitely get away with these beautiful wooden toys, but you still have to be careful that they're not painted with a toxic paint. However, when they get to about 5, 6, and they've got friends and they're influenced by other peers, it's really difficult to keep away from anything plastic. So I think it's just when you're buying products, understand the material, understand how they're going to use it. Definitely don't let children put anything in their mouth that is plastic, and basically choose wisely. I think Kim said it, or Natalie, sorry, said it, like, buy things that are made to last. Just ensure you know what the materials are, and that you're happy with it. And I think that's one of the things I could say. And definitely things like the bedding and general products that you would use every single day. That's where you need to invest money. So car seats and bedding, and ensure that there's no flame retardants in the foam, and if there is, then you cover it with organic cotton sheets, and think about what they're going to be exposed to most and how frequently, and make sure that's where you're investing your money to have it as safe and toxic and non-toxic as you can.
Perfect. I think there's something Kim spoke about, habit change, right? Because a lot, like currently we're used to plastic in a lot of different elements of our daily life. But now as we're becoming more conscious consumers, as parents, it's our responsibility to imbibe habits in our kids, which are already eco-friendly. So what do you think parents or even schools and educational institutions broadly, what can they do to encourage an eco-friendly lifestyle for kids?
Well, number one is they could sign up for Natalie's Natalie's business and have and do things like litter picking and ensure and ocean cleanups. But I think for teachers and parents, it can start as simple as where to put your litter, recycling, getting children to understand what they are using, what it's made out of, and where it goes. Very simple, having multiple bins in the house. It gives them a chance to think about what this is, how much have I used it. So definitely think just recycling, teaching them to think about whether, so we often do things with like loo roll holders. I say, where should we put this? And my middle child would say bin, and my eldest child would be like, no, we can make a snowman, or we can make this. You keep asking them, keep the dialogue open with a child about what something is and where it can go and what else it can be used for.
Right. So I know you've given us an example of what you do with your kids, but what else do you do with your kids to make sure they're eco-friendly as well?
Well, yeah, so obviously we craft a lot. I'm just very strict with lights off and picking up litter when we're out. There is a lot of pushback on that at the moment because it's disgusting, because it's not ours. But also there's consequences. I've seen my child drop something on the floor before and just been like, it wasn't me. And it's just ensuring that they're nice, they're going to grow into nice people, and that they're aware of materials. We also, as Kim and Natalie mentioned on the food front, we do a meat-free Monday. And it's really fun to get the children involved in cooking those meals and ensuring that they're in the kitchen with you. And whilst they're in the kitchen with you, you have a great opportunity to help explain to them more about food. And our favourite activity of the week is receiving our Kibson's order. We always buy the loosely packed or not packed in bags. So it's just a box of fruit and veg, and we get them out and we wash them, and again, keep the dialogue open. Why are we washing this? We buy organic, but as Natalie and Kim have both said, the chemical, and I think you said as well, the chemicals, even because weather creates, so you might have an organic farm that hasn't been sprayed in pesticides, but if 2 miles away there is a farm that isn't organic, that wind and rain and that will affect your organic produce. So giving it a good old wash, and explaining to them why we're doing that. Those are the things I can try. You don't think about it as it's not something I consciously think about doing. It's just life. But
nice. Yeah. Interesting. Great. So today is Meatless Mondays for you, I guess.
It is indeed. Lovely cauliflower curry coming.
Interesting. Great. Thanks so much, Katie. Really appreciate it. We're now going to switch gears to Natalie, who's doing very, very different work. And I'm very intrigued to hear more about Azraq, and leave it to you to tell us a little bit about what all activities you've done in the UAE so far. Sorry, you're on mute, Natalie. Yeah.
Sorted. Thank you. I got involved in marine conservation purely as a diver. I was a scuba diver and I was training to become a scuba diver, and I was very fortunate to have my training dives shared with a whale shark, so in Western Australia. And that one act was my catalyst to do more to conserve and protect our oceans for future generations, as I keep talking about. I didn't really know how I would do that, and the only way I thought I would actually end up doing that was to carry on my training and become an instructor, so that I could teach other people about the importance of conserving and protecting the marine environment, which is what I did. And it's funny enough, I got my certificate to become an instructor in 2013 in June or July. And then in December of that year, the West Australian government, which is where I lived in Australia as well, introduced a policy to kill sharks as a way of protecting beach users. And this initially was just something I was instinctively moved to do something about. I didn't agree with the policy at all. I felt intrinsically that it was wrong. There was nothing else apart from a raw emotion that we shouldn't have to kill a live being in order to protect another live being, that there must be a different solution. And that catapulted me into a completely different biosphere. And that's where I started to start a campaign to try and protect these sharks from being killed as a result of this policy introduction. We were successful. So in my first campaign, and that's what caused me to look at my food consumption. So as the first, because I was a campaigner on shark conservation, I would always get a lot of hate mail because you either love or hate sharks. There's generally no grey area. And so I was asked whether or not I consume seafood, because if I did, I was contributing to the problem. And so the questions about, you know, what was I doing? What was my impacts individually all started to come into the fold as a result of being a campaigner to try and save these beautiful sharks that I loved. And then the more I got down to the avenue and I delved deeper into this issue, the more I realized plastics was also a problem for the sharks as well, if you talk about shark conservation. So all of the things that come with it, it's funny how you might just choose one thing and all of a sudden the path it takes you on, because now we're talking about what's in your makeup, because squalene is also from liver oil of sharks and things like that. So what's in your medicines? And so the journey I've been on, and then wanting to open other eyes to the information that I've accessed. So I'm now in my 40s. This wasn't taught to me at school. And this is something that I think when I hear about what are parents and teachers doing, like I go into schools now as a conservationist, and there's so much more awareness of these issues than what there was when I was going to school. And so I think we you know, this is where I've always got this hope that everyone asks me, am I an optimist? Yes, I still do have hope because I believe in the future generation. I believe that there's way more awareness than what there used to be. We are now starting to see governments talk about single-use plastic and bans and taxes and things like that. So there's greater awareness. But with this brand new focus on shark conservation, I ended up leaving my job of 15 years, which was a government policy media advisor. So I was speaking out against policy, which wasn't seen as something that you would normally do. And I quit before I was fired, basically. So, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I got picked up by a conservation organisation in Australia and was actually paid to continue exactly doing what I was doing. So it was my dream job come true until I got the tap on the shoulder that my husband received a job in Dubai. And I had no idea what I was going to do. I had lived in Abu Dhabi before for 2 years, so I knew the country and I knew how it sort of operated. I knew that in comparison to Australia, marine conservation isn't as strong as it is in Australia. So I really had no idea, and I knew I had no networks. No one knew me in the UAE, so it was going to be a hard slog for us for me to find something that I would be happy doing. I was here for 4 months, and me being me, which is a very impatient person, I felt 4 months was way too long not to be working. And I had no idea what I was going to do, and I was getting into that sort of like really like questioning who I am and everything else. And I had a quick conversation with my mother, and she said, you started a not-for-profit in Australia, you can do it in the UAE. Famous last words. The rest is history. It took me a year just to get the permit. And so 4 months wasn't long enough. I had to do a lot more after that before I was able to be operational. But Azraq is now here. And as I mentioned in my intro, we basically motivate, activate and educate the community. And we do that through activities. So I can do a cleanup on the beach tomorrow. There's nothing that stops anyone from litter pickering. It's mainly if you're doing it in groups, and the reason why the government has wants to have permits in place for those activities to take place in larger groups is because we need to ensure that the waste is managed properly. A lot of the time when people are cleaning up, they want to go out and get some friends and do a cleanup. They don't realise how difficult that is, because we also do it that plastic free. So we have Hessian bags, and we have garden gloves, and we have the permits, and we recycle what we can. And even with 5 people, we can pick up over 100 kilos of debris. So what do you do with that? And so people kind of, if they don't have the permit in place, they'll just leave it at the beach that they've collected it from a lot of the time. Right. So we ensure through Azraq that it's all permitted and it's all recycled and disposed of where possible. And getting back to the beginning of this panel discussion, remembering only 9% of what is available for us to actually recycle is recycled. So a lot of it goes just into general waste, into landfill.
Absolutely. So you're doing a lot of beach cleanups, you have a lot of events happening. How do we participate in it as, onlookers? Where do we go and look for these events and these volunteering?
So Azraq does it through a variety of ways. We have two membership options where you can join us, one for free, which means you just basically want to volunteer, and that's what you want to do. So we don't want to charge volunteers to do beach cleanups or ocean cleanups. And then we have a paid membership where you actually get the benefits from our partners, where you have up to 35-40% off from our sustainable partners, and they'll give you a discount with a membership card. And so you join us. So you can join us for free. You can join us and choose to opt in for the 150. And then once you are a member of Azraq, you get communications, whether it be an email or a WhatsApp chat. We actually are starting to promote our members only events. We never used to, because we didn't want that to be out in the public where we could have other people come if they weren't a member, because there is an induction process. We want people to understand why we undertake the activities the way that we do, that we don't want plastic bags when you're doing a cleanup. Whilst it's nice to say that the beach is cleaner, we try not to have plastic or introduce new plastic to take away the plastic. Yeah. So there's just an induction process. Yeah. So we want to ensure that the people that we have on our team are all of the same culture mind, and basically that change that we talk about, that change of habit, is being installed right from their first event and activity. Right. So join us is a simple answer, and every now and then, if you go to our calendar, we will start promoting the members events as well, but we won't give you all the details. You have to be inducted to come along. Yeah.
Sure. So my last question to you, besides buying and volunteering, what else can people do to live greener?
To live greener? Yeah. Okay, so again, we're talking about this change of habit, and it's a change of mindset. So when I said earlier, it's about giving the easiest thing that I did was give up the plastic straw. Funnily enough, that one decision, and again, going on this journey that I talk about, this path when you make a decision, I remember getting a drink that I couldn't drink it without a straw. I had to have a straw. So of course, what is the replacement then? If I've said I'm going to give up straws, but on this particular drink I need one, what's the replacement? So it's talking about replacing those items with an item that is not single use. So it's going back to not disposing. If you can buy something that you don't have to dispose of it after use, then you've got something that you can reuse over and over again. That's way better than the disposable mentality, particularly when I talk about what's along our coastlines.
Yeah.
If I talk about the top 10 items that we see on our coastlines, all of them are single-use plastic items. They're not toasters, they're not fridge, they're not kettles, they're not shoes even, they're there for sure, but they're not in our top 10. So if everybody talked about reducing their single-use plastic, then we're going to have a major impact on our oceans and in regards to the problem of litter to begin with. The number one item that we find before COVID, does anyone want to have a guess on the panel even what the number one item we would find on a cleanup?
Would it be a plastic bag?
Yeah.
Or water bottle lids?
That's our second and third, the water bottles and the lids, but the number one item hasn't been said yet.
Namrata,
say, what do you think? It might be bags, bottles?
I would say it would be a bottle. Yeah.
Cigarette butts.
Oh, wow.
I was just thinking, what do I see on the beach when I walk onto the beach? I'd forgot. I was thinking in the water. Yeah.
So cigarette butts. And so when you think about what's the easiest thing to do now, I've never been a smoker, but I mean, it's going to be obviously very difficult to give up smoking. So it's not going to be an easy thing to do. But if everyone stopped smoking, we would get rid of the number one item. And those items leach toxins into our oceans and into the land. So things like arsenic and lead and nicotine and all these terrible toxins that are in the environment that we can get rid of just if everyone gave up smoking tomorrow. Right. I would love to say, let's just ban smoking completely, but you know, that's not going to be, I can have any control over. So I try and do those things that replace those single-use items. So the bottles, I carry a reusable water bottle everywhere I go. I know we would love to see more filtered water stations available to us, but I know if I fill it up in the day, in the morning, and I take it around with me, at least I've got up to close to a full day's worth of water if needs be. Right. So the other mentality change and the shift in change is my little eco-friendly pack. So I have bamboo and stainless steel straws, I have tote bags, and I have it all in a pack that I can actually just take with me, or I can put it into my bag. So I've got some spare in the car. Now I'm going to come back to a really important point that when people talk about this being hard and it's a cultural change and it's a change in mentality and habit, when we had COVID and the law came in that you have to have face masks, otherwise you received a 3,000 dirham fine.
Yeah.
How many people now walk around with face masks? So it's that simple. It's a change in mentality, a change in habit that when you go out, you're now going keys, wallet, purse, whatever, sunglasses, mask, right? You do the same thing with the replacements of these single-use items. So my focus is not so much on what I do. I do that naturally. It's like previously in the previous panelists they're talking about, it's become habit now. You don't even have to think about these things anymore. But it's about the awareness and making sure people understand that today, it doesn't matter if you are not perfect in this space. I am talking to you on a computer that has a plastic keyboard and a phone here that's got plastic in it, right? We can't get away from it completely.
Absolutely.
However, we can all do something, and we can, even myself today, we can all do something that makes a difference. And it's panelists like this where I pick up items and tips and tricks that I may not even know myself, even though I've been working in this space for 6 years. So it's keeping an open mind to it and not being afraid to take those first steps and afraid of failure, because you cannot fail in this space.
Right. No, absolutely.
And thinking about the legacy you want to leave behind.
Yeah. No, that's really well said. And I think I couldn't agree more. We don't have to be sustainable perfectly at all. We can just make small shifts in our lifestyle and aim to get there, and that's good enough. Yeah. Thanks so much, Natalie. Moving on to you, Kim. Just want you to tell us a little bit more about the Bee's Knees and why you started the Bee's Knees. I know you've given us a bit of an introduction, but if you could delve a little deeper.
Yeah, and I think just as everyone's speaking, I'm doing, I think what a lot of people do is think there's so much, I don't know where to start. And I think for me that is the challenge of this, is because if you start to follow lots of people on Instagram, attend webinars like this, do a lot of reading, it can be very overwhelming. And so for me, it was always, what is the easiest place to start? And we did this with the wax wraps. So I saw these wax wraps and thought, wow, these are a great idea. I haven't seen anybody using them. I don't think we can buy them. It's actually from a small community. So it's employing women. It's using products and everything's being done in that local community. So it's a great community effort. So we started to say, well, if there's these, maybe there's other items. So we started down the route of curating, thinking we would have a website. We're going to have all of these great products. But at some point, I eventually said, but I feel like we're going down the road of pushing people to be consumers, and that also doesn't feel right. So, I would say our wax wraps, which are a super easy way to to get rid of single plastic. So instead of using cling film or even aluminium foil, which you tear off once, I don't think anybody reuses it. I don't think anybody washes it and dries it and uses it again. And sometimes you may use it just for a few minutes. So wax wraps these are organic cotton. They have, they need an oil in them, they need a resin in them, and then they've got wax in them as well. You can get them vegan, so if you don't want to use beeswax products, you can get other wax elements. And I think this is a product that is safe on your food. You could probably eat it. You're not going to be worried that it's wrapping and sealing a piece of fruit. There's nothing in the product that's going to leach. You can use it for years if you rinse them and look after them. And then if you get to the end of the life, you don't want to re-wax them, you want to get rid of them, you can throw them in the garden. You could dig them into the soil and they're going to decompose. So I would also say marketer's nightmare of a co-founder of, you don't even need to buy our wax wraps, because you can just take a bowl and put a plate on top of it and put that in the fridge, and that's what you need to use. But our wax wraps are an easy way to preserve fruit and vegetables. I think the other piece that we've changed what we're doing at home, because we realized that we'd changed the way we were buying food, and there seemed to be a lot more food that was going to waste or getting lost in the bottom of the drawer because we'd forgotten about it. So we started to make some changes of doing a little bit more menu planning, which for me, I always dislike the idea of, but do some menu planning to buy the food, cook the food, there's less waste in it. So with all of that, we started down this route of, we would have this beautifully curated platform, we're going to have all of these products, but we stopped doing that and said, look, again, that's a lot of information. You don't need to go onto an eco-friendly site and buy everything that's on offer. You don't have to bin everything in your kitchen, everything in your bathroom, because often what happens is people see that, feel so overwhelmed by it that they don't do anything. So it's very much start with something really simple and try it. And if that's the only thing you do, as you said, Natalie, you're still making an impact. And whether it's refusing it at the restaurant or the cafe, or taking your own bags to the supermarket, one of those things, if you do it consistently and do it well, it will become a habit. And then, as you also said, Natalie, it starts to open your mind up. So that piece around the curiosity of what could we do next? What is the thing that's not going to upset the kids in the house or the mother-in-law? What are the things that we could do? So finding those ways of doing things. So wax wraps are a really easy, get rid of that single-use plastic. Because for me, anything that you use once and throw out 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, it's not just a waste for the environment, but you're paying for it as well. So it's just money that you're throwing away. So I think in that space, there is the simple things that you could do. Stay curious about it as well. And as you say, you talk to people have other ideas, they're doing different things. Some of the stuff that I've heard today makes me think, okay, maybe there's a little bit more that I can do in that space. And then I think the piece around the education, people will often say, what should I do? And I find if people come and ask, that's a better place to be in. Because if I lectured, friends that would no longer be friends, because I would be at them about being vegan and what are they doing with plastic and why aren't they recycling and why don't they have water filters, no one would want to speak to you. That doesn't mean you don't have a voice and you don't want to educate, but I think it's finding people in part when they're ready to hear that message, or if they look for the information, that information is going to be easy for them to find. Yeah,
absolutely. So Kim, Kaylee had also spoken about it before. I want to touch upon the topic of greenwashing, because what we find now is we have a lot of eco-friendly brands out there, right? I mean, we're running an eco-friendly website. How do we as consumers be careful about being fooled by marketing? Because a lot of brands claim, yeah, we are very clean, we're very eco-friendly, we're 100% organic, but there is an element of hype in that. So how do we protect ourselves as consumers when we are making these shifts to greener options, so to say?
Yeah, and I actually have an interesting story because I feel like I got fooled a little bit recently. And I think so the first thing I always look for is, are there recommendations? So are people using products? So that word of mouth, who are you following on Instagram? What group, what are the products out there? Do you research, look at the reviews? I think look at the ingredients list if it's food, or look at how it's manufactured. But myself, I got a product that I believed was a really good alternative. I'd seen it being sold in different places. I chose someone I thought also supporting a small business. Ingredients looked fine, the packaging. But when it was delivered to me, it came in a very small container, wrapped it in a box. And admittedly, the box, the shredded paper, the stuff that they'd wrapped it as a thank you and tied bows on it. Admittedly, it was sort of recycled, shredded, looked like it could be composted or recycled into plastic courier bags. And I thought, I've bought this product because I'm trying to replace something in my home that is a single-use plastic. So I contacted them and I took photos and said, I'm really disappointed because I've bought your product for this reason, and I understand you don't have a store, you don't have somewhere, so you're going to have to ship it to me. So when you'd asked that question, Namrata, I thought, I'm actually a little bit embarrassed because I thought, and I told a friend of mine, and she said, yeah, you got greenwashed. And I thought, well, yeah, I think I did, but I thought I'd done my research, but what more could I have done? So I don't know. I think you look to what it is and what they're doing. But again, I'm not sure because the sponsored ads that come in, some of the, you see alternatives. If you're chasing price, it might look like it's an equivalent product, but it actually has plastic in it. It's not silk, or it's not sourced sustainably. I don't know if I have an answer for that other than do your due diligence and know that maybe there's going to be times you don't make the best choice, and that if you're trying and you're making great choices a lot of the time, then there's going to be that one. And as I said, as a consumer, all I knew to do was to go to them and say, I don't think this is consistent with what you're advertising and what you've sold me. Whether that's changed anything, I'm not sure. So Kaylee and Natalie, I don't know if you have any suggestion, because I feel like I got a little bit hoodwinked, so maybe I'm not the best person to be making suggestions. Yeah,
I think as a brand and as someone that sells products, I think one of the things that we find, we have bought consumer boxes, and it's really frustrating because our products are already boxed, but to be able to ship them to direct to consumers in the UK and the UAE, then they have to go into another box, a shipping box, and again, you can get those recyclable, but we invested in those and we have them in both of our warehouses, but we're not doing the fulfillment ourselves. And thankfully, a customer of ours in the UK took the time to email us and say, what a beautiful product, however it arrived in this plastic yodel packing bag. Yeah. To which we as the brand were just like, well, that's not acceptable. We've supplied the materials and how we want you to package the goods and send it on. So there was an element of like, until we had that customer come to us, we had no idea that our products were being sent like that. And because lots of the unboxing that happens on Instagram by happy customers showed the shipping box, so we were hoodwinked by our supplier. And you just have to try and make sure. What we do now is when we're onboarding new warehouses or new shipping teams, we just give them a list of things that we don't accept, and we say this is what it's got to be. We had one in the UAE who decided to bubble wrap our boxes at one point and put them into a box so that to protect the packaging because it was a gift. So I think it's really you've just got to be on the ball with your manufacturers, with all of your suppliers, and you've just got to make sure they understand your business and that they are that they know that it's your brand and this is what you want and what you need. But I do understand where you come from, because when the customer told me about the plastic bag, I was so upset because I was like, that's my brand appearing on your doorstep in plastic, when all of my ads, all of my website, everything I try and put across is saying no plastic, zero plastic. So yeah, I felt she had the right to be a bit cross with us, to be honest, but we were glad that she reached out.
Thanks so much for that, Katie. I think just being a little mindful of time, I want to give all three of you the opportunity to give some advice to the viewers in a line each, just as last words, closing words from all three of you. Whoever wants to go first.
I'm not too sure if I can add to what I've already said, apart from just being able to do your best or try and do your best. And again, not to be fearful of being judged, that there's no anything really wrong that you can do, even though there's probably ways you can do things better. But unless you start on this journey, you're not going to know. And as this is where Kim has come into it, like you don't know until you go and give it a go. You've done your due diligence, you've done your studies, you've actually looked into it, and so you believe you've made the right choice, and so you wouldn't have known any differently had it not been delivered to you the way that it was delivered. So you have to give it a go. At some stage, you've just got to go, okay, I'm crossing fingers that these people are doing everything that they say that they do.
Yeah.
But that's not enough in terms of like getting back to that issue. It's not enough. We do have to do due diligence as well, because if we all hope that all the organisations were doing the right thing, then we wouldn't need these conversations, right? So there's that, but also to talking to your peers, talking to colleagues, saying if you've got an issue, like for example, we have issues all the time even in our operations, even though we are very much aware of this issue. So what are the options? So we are going back, I remember.
Sorry, Natalie, you broke up. Okay, so I guess, yeah, Kim or Kaylee, one of y'all could go first, because I guess the internet's acting up.
I'm going to wrap it up and just kind of start with what I said at the beginning, which is contribute more than you consume. That would be my advice. So that can be making some of the changes we've mentioned here today, researching products that are best for your family, best for your health. But yeah, contribute more than you consume.
But
yeah, and for me, it's just choose one thing, choose it today and start. And it will become a habit, and then you'll be able to, piggyback something else onto that. So it's just start today. Don't feel that your little effort in yourself or your home or your community is not going to make a difference, because it does make a difference. So that would be my piece. And start today, like carpe diem, seize the moment, seize the opportunity.
Thanks so much for that, Kim. Ladies, thank you so much. Kaylee and Kim, Natalie has dropped off, but thank you. It was really, really interesting. It was great to have you guys on board. For the audience, thank you so much for joining us. I know we didn't have time for questions because the conversation went on longer. Please feel free to send us your questions, and we'll definitely pass it on to Kim, Kaylee, and Natalie and get you the answers. We will be recording this session. We will share that with you as well. Thank you so much. ShiftEco conducts sessions every month, so please look out for our next webinar. We want to make sure we are opening this dialogue and talking a lot more about what we can do to be eco-friendly. And enjoy the holidays. Have a green holiday and take care. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.